Okay, so our next speaker is Chong Ho Alex Yu, and he'll be talking to us about diverse perspectives of the theology of creation care and the science of climate change. So you guys can go ahead and share with us now. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Very happy to see you all. We get to follow two excellent presentations. I've got big shoes to fill. So my name is Ricky Yip. I'm a high school teacher and also a student of Dr. Yu and Dr. Huang from Azusa Pacific University. So happy to be here to share with you our finding in the diverse perspective of the theology of creation care and the science of climate change. And Dr. Yu, next slide, please. Well, a little bit of literature background for you. Missioner argues that creation should neither be reduced to a product of God nor regarded as identical to God. And so to summarize his writing, here's the following quote. As a gift of God coming directly from his being, creation is integrally linked to God. It is not simply a done and settled event for humans to handle as they wish. God gave of himself in his act of creation. He gives of himself presently in and through creation. And he will give of himself as he redeems and renews creation in the future. So to summarize, I think Missioner is asking us to be participants in the process, to cherish, to guard, and to care for our environment. Next slide, please, Dr. Yu. One of the most influential work that I've looked at recently, and I actually have that copy in front of me right now, is by Dr. Hugh Ross. His book is very influential in the sense that it focuses on the scientific findings for climate change, the consequences of climate change, and what we can do. And I think it really echoed what Dr. Huang talked about earlier regarding the temperature change throughout the history of the Earth, and also resonates with what Barry and Virginia just talked about regarding sea level elevation change. And so Hugh Ross's book, very influential to my understanding. And lastly, also Rosling and Bodengag extended the discussion on two new terms. One is ecothermy, which is the combination of ecology and theology, and also a call for kairos, which is an opportune time for crucial action. And I would share with Barry that it is a message of hope as well. And with that in mind, I'll turn to Dr. Yu. Next slide, please, and I'll let him go from here.
Hi, good morning. Okay, so I'm a psychologist, and I am interested in the perception of people. Why people are so resistant, when we're under this crisis, we are facing a disaster. So we want to collect data. We want to objectively evaluate what is happening, what are people thinking. We use a mixed method design, which means we collect both numbers and also textual data or open-ended responses. Well, it's important to do both. Sometimes a number cannot capture really, the complexity, the complex dimension of people mentality. And we use crowd research to send a survey. We get we invite our friends, but most respondents are from the internet. Why we do that? Because when we invite our friends and so on, then so those people know us, and their answers may change according to our friendship. So the majority are from a crowd research. We got 109 questions without any typo, any leadership role. Also, we have 62 questions with a leadership role. So he or she could be a pastor, elder, deacon, and also professor of theology and so on. So those are so-called key opinions leader. They influence, they make a difference to their audience. And the question covers several aspects. First, of course, we collect their background information, who they are, are you a pastor? Are you a lay person? Gender, also education, and so on. But the focus are on 4 major aspects, like their perception, their position on global warming, and also on science. How much do you trust science? How much do you trust the climate science and so on? Also their lifestyle and green lifestyle. And for example, do they install a solar panel on their roof? Do they drive a hybrid car and so on? And also their position on some policy, like it's okay, for US to withdraw from the Paris Accord. And the two major things that we are looking at is about Christian nationalism. This is not an official theology, but however, this is so popular. The main idea is that when people will hold the belief, the U.S. Is special, exceptional. America is a city upon the hill, and so on. So when people think we are special, though, how this mentality, how this unofficial theology would affect the perception, their position on these issues. Second, when people they believe that, oh, God make me prosper, God bless me, God will provide me with wealth and health. When I believe, how this mentality would affect the perception, their position on global warming. So we have numbers, and we use data visualization. Also, we have textual data. We use content analysis. Okay, before we jump into the data, the result, I want to talk more about how we measure the perception of this nation is blessed by God, is a city upon the hill, and so on. And so I did not make this up. I did not invent this. Actually, we adopt some questions, some survey items developed by other scholars. And the survey is said to be reliable. So it could really reflect how people look at the U.S. as a Christian nation. For example, how much, to what degree you think the government should declare the U.S. as a Christian nation. Okay, so, and also, and to what degree do you think that the U.S. is a part of God's plan? Okay, now back to our data, our sample. And we, as mentioned before, we use crowd research. So, we no longer just recruit subjects from our local university or church and so on. Rather, we utilize technology. And so at first, we collect about 267 response. However, after screening, which means we look at the open-ended responses, we found that some are not serious. I mean, some answers are really nonsensical, and so we remove a lot. We remove about 45 disqualified responses, but still, we have responses, we have observation all over the U.S. So not just from some big city or big state. Everybody except Montana and Wyoming, and also this is New Mexico. Yeah, but we have people from everywhere. Okay, so now let's look at the result. And here on the y-axis, you can see that there are four perception about global warming, climate change is on the left-hand side, not a problem. And then when you move to the right, number 2, not so serious. Number 3, somewhat serious. Number 4, very, very serious. Do something now. You can see, on the x-axis is the score, the rating of how much to what degree do you accept that the US is a Christian nation? God bless America. We are special and so on. You can see the more people accept this theology, the more likely they think it's not a problem, right? You can see the step, right? So from highest to, and then the step down, and so on. You can see a very clear association. Okay, now when you look at another slide. Okay, so here we partition the data into leadership and no leadership, and well, you can see actually people in the leadership position compared with the lay person, they tend to think this is not a problem. For us, this is a problem. When the leadership say, it's not a problem, more than lay person. Okay, now this graph is a bit complicated. So I think it's better for me to present it interactively. Okay, so this is the real one. Okay, now you can see, I partition the response by denomination. Are you Catholic? Are you evangelical? And so on. Now you can see, wow, this is so, okay, everything is jammed together. Well, but when I select evangelical, okay, can you see the highlight, right? So you can see the same pattern stepping down, right? Okay, more evangelical or evangelical who accept that USA is a Christian country. We are blessed by God. We are special. So they tend to think that, well, not a problem. Global warming, climate change, no big deal. But and so when they think, the issue, the problem is serious, then their score is lower in terms of how much they agree US is a Christian nation. When you look at fundamental, you can fundamental. So you can see the same pattern, right? Stepping down. Okay. Okay, now let's look at another graph. Okay, so here you can see the y-axis is do you think global climate change will never harm people? Won't harm people for a long time. Will harm people in the future, in the near future, and harming people now. Once again, when people they accept the theology of we are exceptional, God bless America, and so on, then they tend to think that, whoa, you won't harm people. Okay, when you partition the data by leadership, then once again, actually people who are key opinions leader, pastor, professor, and so on, compared with layperson, they tend to think that, well, this will not harm people. I mean, when those pastor, professor, deacon, and so on, they accept USA is a Christian nation. They tend to think, well, okay, no big deal. Okay, so now we'll turn to another graph. Okay, once again, when you partition the data by their church, their membership. Okay, once again, you can now he's evangelical. So you can see some pattern. So evangelical who accept the notion of prosperity gospel, they tend to think that no big deal, not a problem. Okay, I'm sorry, the wrong graph. Okay, so it should be like we will not harm people. Okay, so people, those evangelical, they accept USA is a Christian nation. They tend to think that now global warming will not harm people. Okay, it's alarming. Okay, in one question is, do do you support that the U.S. should return to the Paris Accord? And you can see that. You can see the the red bar on my left hand side is outstanding. That is, people who are layperson who have no leadership role, they tend to think that they say, I don't know what it is, no idea what is that. Okay, so here you can see also the theology, how it's related to the position on the Paris Accord. Okay, I have to go faster because they are more. Okay, and once again, when people they subscribe, God make you prosper, God grant you health, and God make your life better, and so on. Then they tend to think that global warming will not harm people, will never. Okay, so the main point is that this you may say causal or semi theology that God bless America, God bless you, God make you prosper, and so on, are inversely related to concern for global climate change. Also, leaders who subscribe to this theology, they tend to be less concerned, and they also oppose any Green Deal, green policy. Also, it's alarming to see that most layperson don't know what it is, what is Paris Accord. So we need to educate both Christian leaders and layperson. Now I will turn it to Ricky.
Sure. And I'll be quick out of respect of everyone's time. In the first slide right here, we have a close-ended question, and you see that most people at this time do not have hybrid vehicles. Next slide, please. And do analysis of our qualitative data, we find out some of the reason why, and you can kind of see that the highlighted words are afford, expensive, and money. And that brings across cost being the main theme for people that are not adopting alternative energy. And we're using a max QDA method that analyzes open-ended questions, something that's new, not possible to be done a few years ago. Next slide, please. The message is echoed actually in another question. Here you see the count, afford, expensive, and money. And most of these are actually mutually exclusive with the exception of two cases. So we're looking at about a third of all respondents mentioning costs. Next slide, please. And here the message again is being repeated in solar panel. Virginia brought this up earlier in terms of solar panel. And we see at this point, most people are not, most of the respondents are not using solar panel. And let's look at the reason for the next slide, please. Again, highlighting the key terms, aside from the STEM terms from the question, solar, energy, and power, we see that afford, money, and expensive are again the themes. Next slide, please.
2 minutes.
Okay, so we can wrap it up in 2 minutes. And here again, the counts. Next slide, please. Most interestingly, in this cross tab, you see the interaction across the two variables. And we could bring this all together to a close and open responses, highlighting the key concept that those that are responding no, cost is the main issue for both alternative energy and solar panel. Next slide, please. Now we can actually skip this slide too, Dr. Yu. I want to point out to the last slide, the comparison. Next slide, please. And in my closing visual here, you'll see that there is a difference between the respondents and how they approach their understanding towards science and whether or not they trust climate science. And Dr. Yu highlighted that under the no bar, you see that almost double the amount of those that do not trust climate scientists as opposed to science. Next slide, please. And with that, I want to conclude by mentioning the key themes here is that the majority of respondents are not yet using alternative energy or solar panels. And the main reason appears to be costs. And that in our last slide, we saw that treating science and climate science differently seems to be a common theme as well. Last slide, please. And with that, I want to thank Dr. Yu, Dr. Huang for their guidance, and I'll hand back to Dr. Yu for any closing remarks or questions.
Okay, we just have 30 seconds left in this session, so I don't think we have time for questions, but as I said earlier, there will be time for discussion later. And we thank you for your presentation. A lot of data to absorb there. And I appreciate you all pulling all of this information together. I really appreciate your expertise, and you're adding many dimensions to this question of climate change, from the history, from Galileo, from the films about just regular people and the way they're experiencing climate change, and to the sociological surveys. We've looked at this climate change issue from many different angles, so it's very interesting to see how ASA folks are looking at this from different perspectives. So I learned a lot. I hope you all did too. Thank you.
All.
Thank you, everybody.